in nature. I wanted to do a quick live stream that kind of includes what I was talking about as far as living off grid in Kentucky. We have a great commonwealth here. There's a lot of reasons why people gravitate towards it. If you want any land, like acreage, and you look up states with the cheapest land, you can actually use there's a lot of super cheap land. It's like campground, but so my best advice for people on low income, one income that want to live off the land or at least start to make those steps like we have chickens, a large garden, we planted lots of fruit trees and berry bushes. Well, of course you can do that in any residential neighborhood, or you can't always have chickens. But if you want to live out in the country, you are gravitating towards Kentucky for all of the reasons. It's like just such a beautiful place full of fertile farmland. A lot of it is too rocky and not farmland, but we still have tons of nice pasture here. We have so much wildlife. I've lived in Florida and California. I've never seen so many different creatures. It's amazing. And every day is like you never know what you're going to see driving around here. And I just understand because of the cost, especially why there's a lot of transplants. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. However, I grew up mostly outside of Kentucky. I've lived here for like half of my adult life. I'm 37 years old. And me and my husband a few years ago moved here, bought some acreage. We're trying to go off grid. We ended up selling that. I tell people we flipped it, but what we did was we bit off more than we could chew. So if you want land, I understand you might see some that's attractive, but you set a budget and you don't go above that budget, whatever your situation is. A lot of us are selling our houses and then we are going to buy land in Kentucky. If you do that, set a budget, know that you should not be putting even half of that into land, I would say, unless you've got like a six-figure budget. And you're always going to spend more than you think you will to get established. Off-grid life is very expensive. It is worth it, but to establish it, it is very expensive and you will get no help. We bit off more than we could chew because we thought we got this really good deal, and we did. I say that we flipped it because we made a profit after all was said and done. We made a little bit of a profit, just enough profit to not be considered like capital gains territory, which was great. And this is all one income. We learned a lot of lessons from doing that. And I would say the best advice would be if you want to go off grid or you want to homestead, you want to build from the ground up, really, ideally, you get a property that has a structure on it that has established utilities. Once you have that, you can basically do whatever you want in the additional dwelling that you are going to put on it. Now, of course, you should always check, but like what I was saying about Titus Moore saying that there's Liberty in Liberty, Kentucky, and he bought land without an ID, which I do not believe for 1 second. I think that his dad bought it and then he like quit claimed him. And I think it's just misconstrues some of what is the actual freedom in Kentucky. Basically, you can be off grid here, even if maybe allegedly, I feel like I shouldn't be saying this. The EPA is going to say, oh, you should have, you can have any kind of composting toilet. You can have, oh, this is great. I'm getting some people in the chat. I'm so glad to see you guys. I'm doing well, and I hope you all are too. Let me know how you're doing. If you don't mind letting me know where you're at, I just always think that's cool to see people's location. So basically, if you get a property that already has the established utilities, even if this house is like in bad shape, like you will be so much better off. And that might be on a quarter of an acre. I get it. It doesn't sound like enough, but like really a quarter of an acre is enough to learn about. I'm in central Kentucky. Oh, that's awesome. The Netherlands. That's so neat. Um, there's a lot of freedom here, and what is so attractive in a lot of things, something that people have been here because of Titus and Peter Santanella's video, they feel peace. There's something about like it is God's country. Whatever God you believe in, it is God's country. It's so special, and there's like so much. You should look out for areas that have had mountaintop blasting, and there's a website where you can check and see if the area you're looking at land has had any mountaintops blasted, because I would recommend heavily to avoid that land because it's going to be contaminated or poisoned. Any water, creeks is going to be possibly poisoned. Um, hey, well, this is so neat. The Netherlands and Germany. That is so neat. I wonder what time it is where you guys are. It's like 8:20 p.m. right now. So for me, so I really wanted to stress is I before we went off grid, I would tell myself like every hot shower I had at my first house, my old house before we sold it, I'd be like, I might not have a hot shower. Like you should prepare yourself for that for like tell yourself every time you're using a convenient utility, I might not be able to do this and thank God for having the blessing of it. And I just knew like things will work out the way that they're supposed to. Obviously, like I said, we sold that property. It was 1 year of living in that property. We bought a shed and we're doing the shed conversion. There's tons of those around here. Tons. I see so many. I feel wrong like videoing people's houses, but that's early in the morning or late at night, Roger. My grandpa's from Switzerland, the Germany border, Bern, Switzerland. So, yeah, my grandpa immigrated here in the 50s as well as his wife, my grandma. And that's like something else that they met in California, but they moved to Kentucky together. And Kentucky's often gets this bad rap. I saw it the other day on a big channel saying it was one of the most racist states. I don't believe that's true. Oh, geez, Louise. So I've never ever done a live stream besides tonight. So bear with me whenever there's trolls. Anyways, so get a property, like as much as larger land might seem attractive, having a dwelling, having utilities, if there is an electric pole on it, sometimes it could be commercial. If there's like no residence there and there is an electric pole, you need to be aware that might be marked as commercial. It's totally different using those, and you might not be able to connect it to a dwelling of yours. Um, I wouldn't say, I mean, whatever you think, I don't know how to block this person. The Appalachian Mountains, it's just a lot of rough terrain. So I do believe, yes, it's quite possible that there's who knows what out there. And it's one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world. There's definitely a special presence to it. We are technically in a county that is considered Appalachia, but we're like at the foothills of Appalachia. And there's kind of like a sweet spot. You should look, of course, consider schools and crime rate. You'll see like really cheap land in Kentucky. Often it will have bad crime rates. There is a lot of crime going on in certain areas, unfortunately, with a little opportunity and a lot of drug use. And that's really unfortunate. So, thank you, Roger. Um, I think that's really the point I wanted to make was I wish I would have listened to a realtor on here, Christina Smallhorn. She did say if you're going to like start from the ground up, really, you should have a residence there. Like it's like, well, that's kind of disappointing to have a structure you may or may not be using. But with the established utilities comes so much freedom. And if you develop that property, you can move on to more land when that's paid off. And debt free is so much easier in a state like Kentucky where the cost of living is like 8% cheaper than the rest of the states and cost of housing 22% cheaper. Um, there, yeah, I definitely believe, who knows what's going, yeah. Um, I think there's a lot of history that we don't know too, because of course these people were so isolated, like I really am open to that. And yeah, lots of people from Scotland are here for sure. And it's actually, I've heard similar to some terrain that's there. The Kentucky Dave Ramsey. Oh no. Um, I am more blessed than I deserve to be, or what does he say? I I stopped listening to Dave Ramsey because I got tired of hearing like rich people basically say like I have $600,000. Should I pay off my house and my car, or should I get another $600,000 house? It's like that's not a problem. You know what I mean? Like, I want to hear financial advice from somebody that's like going to help people who are actually struggling and don't have like hundreds of thousands of dollars set aside, which is fine if you do, but I don't know why that's like an issue you need to call Dave Ramsey and get his advice for. So there is a lot of inflated prices here. Watch out. Like there's land I've seen for sale for 2 years now. It's like heavily inflated. You should be aware that there's there's really bad ticks here. Bad ticks. You're not going to be able to spend any amount of time outside without getting some ticks on you, and you need to take preventative measures for that. So when you're in super rough land, like I looked at this one property that was so great. It would be so great for an off-grid property, but it would be take so long to mitigate the tick issues in a property that's never been developed like that before. So take into consideration that it will take time to get it to the point where it's going to be your ideal homestead. And maybe starting off very small is ideal because then you can take your time, make mistakes on a small scale. Before you know it, you're going to have a beautiful piece of property that so many other people are going to want when you're ready to put it on the market. And I'm not saying for sure. I know people are going to say it might be a bad market coming up, but I just think with the lack of housing, that's not going to happen. There's no bubble that's going to implode. There's such a lack of housing. And if you move within an hour of a city, there's plenty of jobs. I know there's definitely a lack of opportunity, lack of jobs overall. And like Eastern Kentucky is like where is the cheapest. There are going to be no jobs. So unless you have big savings, don't expect, to establish life in Eastern Kentucky easily because that's why it is so cheap. And you can get like 40 acres for $20,000 because there's no jobs there. So I think I've pretty much repeated myself. I'm trying to get used to going live and practice this. And if anybody has any questions they want me to answer, something they want me to talk about, let me know. And thank you for watching this.